For Black Americans, it's really hard to pinpoint when in history we are supposed to have been proud to be American. Um, Other than being born here, there's not much else we can point to and say, that's the moment we became American. When the Declaration of Independence was signed, we were slaves. When the Constitution was adopted, we were slaves. When the Civil War was fought, we were slaves, and even when it ended, we remained slaves for several more years. 50 more years in a state of semi-slavery, and 100 more years as second-class citizens. And even as we go through up to today, as we see, there are still many cases where the rights of citizenship seem to escape our grasp. So you'll have to forgive us if we don't echo the sentiments of current congressmen and senators who comment on this separation of families at the border as this being not who we are as America. If you ask Native Americans, they'll tell you this is exactly who America is. America has been separating Native American families for hundreds of years. If you ask Black Americans, they might tell you the same. They have been separating Black families for hundreds of years. But there is no denying that this policy instituted by President Trump and his Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the policy of separating families at the border for trying to cross legally or illegally, separating families trying to cross legally, seeking asylum, escaping violence, some escaping domestic violence, some children as young as 8 months old. They are separating screaming children from screaming parents simply because they believe it will deter people from trying to immigrate into the United States. That right there is about as devilish and as fiendish as the United States government has outwardly acted in probably since slavery, since Jim Crow, since the internment of Japanese Americans, since the atomic bombing of Japan. This is about as inhumane as the United States government has done in many years, and it's certainly a step backwards. It's unfathomable to think that people are willing to go to these lengths just to try to deter people from migrating here. But you know what? There's another part of this story that I don't think we're giving enough attention to, and that is the people who work for the Department of Homeland Security, the people who work for the Border Patrol, the people who are physically separating families, the people who are inflicting that much pain on people. There's not any more pain you can inflict on a parent than taking their child from them. Even death would be more preferred. For a child, there's no more pain that you can inflict on them than separating them from their parents. And the individuals who are giving these orders and who are taking these children and that are locking them in cages and that are locking parents in jails, they can't inflict that much pain and suffering on other human beings day in and day out and not be affected by it themselves. We might not be hearing about it yet, but mark my words, there's going to be some cases of PTSD coming out of these people working at the border doing this physical work. Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump are not down there themselves hearing the screams, okay? And you know what? This is obviously an embarrassment for the United States. It obviously makes me not proud to be an American. And I really hope that the United Nations intervenes and holds the United States accountable to whatever extent they can. We know that the United States basically controls the United Nations, them and a few other countries. But nevertheless, something has to be said by the international community because this is a violation of human rights. And before all of you get on here commenting about how I should have my citizenship stripped, you know what? Go take a long walk off a short pier, because I'm not in the mood to entertain y'all today. This is obvious. This is blatant. There is nowhere in the law that says the government has to do this. This is just the work of some corrupt, morally bankrupt, evil people, namely the Trump administration and anybody involved in this. To the rest of the world, I can't do anything except offer my apologies and tell you that there are many of us that are fighting to make the United States a more compassionate place.